Greetings and welcome to the review session for the Awakening in 30 Steps. What we're about to do is go through all 30 steps together as a review session, and I think that that's going to be helpful for one of two reasons. If you've already been through all 30 posts, then this is a nice way to kind of gauge and assess how you're doing with your memorization. And why that's important is because we're following a very classic methodology from the Tibetan monasteries, which is grounded in, of course, Indian philosophy. The first level or first entry point for good meditation is a sound conceptual understanding, and that comes from studying. But it doesn't stop there. The debates in the debate courtyards in the monastery are a way for people to make the conceptual knowledge more personal. And the way that we did that on our Instagram experiment was to have each of you post your own reflections and then to have the little bits of engagement between and interactions between you. So that served the purpose of bringing a conceptual knowledge down into personal reflection. But then what is classically done is the conceptual and the personal become experiential based on the juice press meditation. And unfortunately, we didn't do that on Instagram. We just did the first two. We did conceptual and reflective. The juice press meditation is going to happen in my upcoming year-long meditation series. There, we're going to take all the concepts and themes from the Lam Rim, and we're going to meditate on them. But it doesn't stop there either. It's a powerful thing to take something from a conceptual into a personal and then into an experiential, and to really extract the essence of them. But then from there, you have to get off your meditation cushion, and if you've rewired and reprogrammed your view and your lifestyle and your attitude around these powerful themes, then you bring them, you reconsolidate your intuitions around them, and then then they translate into everyday life. And in fact, so what we're doing is we're bringing powerful view from a conceptual, personal, and meditative experience, rewired and recalibrated our intuitions around them, and then gotten off our cushion and into life. In other words, we've brought all those insights into the world. So that's the methodology. And so what I'd like to do is, if you have been on the journey and this is a review session for you, you can kind of assess for yourself how many of the steps you can anticipate and have been internalized, and where you still need a little work to do. But there may be another group of people that just arrived on this post somehow. Synchronicity, I guess. Nothing is coincidence, of course, and it's perfectly okay. The advantage of that is that you'll jump into this review session and you'll get a very good bird's eye view of the entire terrain, and you'll see how all the steps lead up to these three major milestones. And that might intrigue you to start with the first post and to do the entire 30 posts with us. Either way, whether you have done the 30 and are doing the review session on the heels of our journey together, or you're just jumping in now, we all go around and around and internalize the steps. We need to go through them again and again because we're ever increasingly developing the insight and intuition of them. And so, and of course, I get to do it again and again. And I love to do it again and again. And I need to do it again and again for sure. And so you may find me just looking up, because I'm going to make sure I hit every single number. I mean, I have the steps, of course, already memorized, but the actual number, I just want to make sure I get them consistent. And so you may find me looking up, and that's what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that we have an accurate reflection of all the 30 posts here in one session for your assessment, your self-assessment, and to keep you accountable to the steps of the journey. Okay, here we go. And you may just want to clear the deck with a nice few breaths. And we begin with the first 6 steps of the journey is our meditative environment. And that begins with finding a sacred space, or creating a sacred space to do the work. Step 2, set up an altar and make offerings. Step 3, adjust your motivation and your posture. So you sit down, you get a nice aligned and comfortable posture, and then you adjust your motivation. There, I offered 3 encouraged motivations from the Lam Rim. Step 4 is to cross the threshold. So that's when we leave the ordinary world and our ordinary sense of self. We dissolve into emptiness and we re-arise in the jewel tree sanctuary. That step is called evoking the mentor and the jewel tree refuge. Step 5 is the mentor bonding process, we called it. Step 5 is traditionally called cultivating virtue and eliminating vice. We call it the mentor bonding process, and therein lies a 7 sub-step phase of melding one's mind with the mentor. Begins with admiring the qualities, making offerings, disclosing negativities or limits, rejoicing in virtues, requesting guidance or blessings, requesting ongoing presence and continuity, and finally dedicating our merits. And then step 6, concluding our visualization practice with a mandala offering. So that's a very powerful first 6 steps, and lots of merit is created in that meditative ritual. And also negativities, places where we are stuck, we get to purify. So very powerful crucible, incubator, powerful, alchemical for sure. Then we begin with steps 7 and 8. Now steps 7 and 8 are about our relationship. This is the vehicle that's going to carry us along the trajectory of the 30 steps, our relationship with our mentor, real world mentor. So step 7 is find a qualified guide, a real world mentor to rely on. And it is our bonding process with the real world mentor. It's going to take us all the way to enlightenment. That's why they say that the mentor is the root of the path. Step 8 then, we have to be accountable to as students. So become a suitable student. And whereas the point 7 of the mentor had 10 qualities, the qualifications of the student are just 3. So try to remember what those 3 are. Then we start the Lam Rim steps in earnest with step 9, and that is, of course, the preciousness of human life endowed with liberty and opportunity. So beautiful. And there, of course, we have a list of 10 fortunes and 8 freedoms. Step 10, once we appreciate life and we juice press the miracle of life, then we contemplate death, how quickly it comes. Death comes for sure. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. And the only thing that will help us at the time of death is our Dharma realizations, not just our practice, but our realizations. From death comes step 11 on refuge. And of course, refuge, there is only one true refuge. But we can find true refuge by first relying on the outer 3 jewels, and then we can find the inner 3 jewels, and then we realize there is only one true refuge, only one true jewel to rely on. So there's Buddha Dharma Sangha, then there's the inner Buddha Dharma Sangha, and then it always just comes down to the Dharma, the realizations. Step 12, then we went from refuge into causality, the laws of karma, the laws of cause and effect. And there I gave the 4 characteristics of karma. From there we went into step 13, which is the deficits of samsara, the deficits or the detriments of a compulsive life. And if you remember, we were calling this that chicken nugget contemplation. And we assigned or ascribed 6 symptoms six types of suffering that characterize samsara. On the basis of the chicken nugget contemplation, we go to step 14, which is renunciation, abandoning not the world, but abandoning the compulsive life, having really tasted and engendering a sense of disgust. Abandon the causes of suffering. We rebranded this one as evolutionary self-love, and we also talked about the actual translation from the Tibetan as definite emergence. So powerful. Then we arrived at the first milestone of renunciation, and we took a little deep breath and we enjoyed the vista. This is basically understanding how we're all traumatized and we want to abandon the causes of our trauma. We want to heal. We want to become more flexible. We want to be free. So we level out at a beautiful horizon, and we took a nice gulp of air and a little view. And then we realized there is no other place but our vast and profound interconnectivity and interrelationality with all beings. So we started a second leg of the journey. We level out at a beautiful horizon, and we took a nice gulp of air and a little view. And then we realized there is no other place but our vast and profound interconnectivity and interrelationality with all beings. So we started a second leg of the journey. This is called the Mahayana, the Great Universal Vehicle Steps. So that is beginning with step 15, the equanimity, the balancing social sensitivity. So our reactions to loved ones, our tainted reactions to strangers, our tainted reaction to enemies, learning how to balance those out. Step 16 is the beginning of the Asanga contemplations, the recognize all beings as kin, or recognizing all beings as having at one time in the infinite span of life, they have at one time occupied the role of mother. Step 17, remember their kindness. Remember their kindness. And remember how we defined kindness. And then step 18, the wish to repay that kindness. It's our turn to give back for the incredible energy expenditure that all beings have put in to make our life possible. It's time to give back. From there, we transitioned into the Shantideva steps, and we began there with equalize self and other. Instead of focusing on the differences, start by seeing how we are all fundamentally wishing for happiness, wanting to avoid suffering. The great unifier. Then contemplate the disadvantages of self-enclosure. Step 20. The disadvantages, all the suffering that emerges from our self-enclosure, our defensiveness, all of the problems that creates. This is the drive all blames into one Lojong slogan. And on the basis of that, we see that there's a hand grenade with the pin pulled out, waiting an explosion in everybody's heart. And so there we begin to take on, through the breath, the suffering of others. We begin to see just how burdensome it is to live like that, and that there's a terrified animal or terrified child in all of us. Step 22 then is to do the inverse contemplation, was contemplate the benefits of altruism and start to see how all of our successes worldwide and throughout all history have always come from one origin, which is love and compassion, sensitivity, teamwork. And so there, on the basis of that reflection, start to share the love. Start to share the love. And so between these two steps, 20 and 21, we're actually contemplating the detriments and contemplating the benefits, but we're also doing the tonglen of giving and taking and giving and taking and taking, suffering and giving joy, giving peace. And then step 22 now, recognizing that all of our mother beings are ensnared in their nightmare making, then we take responsibility. We feel a sense of what the Dalai Lama calls universal responsibility. I have to be the one. I have to help. I want to help. I have to help. And this is called the great resolve, or the great compassion. I will be the one to help. And then at the tail end of that is a single insight into the great leveling sense of humility. But how can I help? How can I help? So from step 22 on the responsibility comes step 23, which is our second milestone. It's called bodhicitta. I want to help, but how can I help? The way that I can help ultimately is by determining to become awakened for the benefit of others. Here we are, arriving at the second milestone. Take a nice big gulp and enjoy the vista. We have established the altruistic resolve. Now the next leg of the journey is to take our resolve into our reactions and into our relations with others. So let's begin what are called the perfections, paramitas. Step 24, perfect generosity, sometimes called perfect giving. There are 3 types of giving. Can you remember the 3 types of giving? Step 25, the perfection of morality, or the perfection of virtue, or the perfection of ethics. There we also talked about 3 types of ethics. Step 26, the perfection of patience. Again, 3 types of patience. And step 27, the perfection of perseverance, sometimes called flow, sometimes called effort. There we actually talked about 3 kinds of laziness that are making obstacles or preventing us from really persevering on the path. Then we went to step 28 and we perfected our concentration. So the prior 4 are really our engagement trainings. Then the last 2 perfections are our wisdom trainings. So the first 4 of the perfections help us with the relative bodhicitta. The latter 2 perfections help us with the ultimate bodhicitta. Concentration is required. A stable mind is required in order for the deep and clear seeing of the nature of reality, which is step 29, the perfection of wisdom. And the perfection of wisdom is apprehending, not at a conceptual level, but at a very deep and intuitive level, that all things, all phenomenon, all people, places, and things, all subjects, all objects, all interactions lack inherent existence and yet still arise. Lack inherent existence and yet still arise. And then finally we make it to the summit, the third and final milestone according to Lama Tsongkhapa. Correct view of reality, which conjoins our apprehension of the ultimate nature of things as having an absence of intrinsic reality and yet still arising, and therefore reality is merely relative. It's all relative. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form, which means all the relative reality that we're experiencing, all our experiences, all our interactions, ourselves, our others, the subject, object, and interaction, are all play, all malleable, all fluid, and awaiting. They are awaiting our interaction with them. And so based on all our bodhisattva heart training and our emptiness, deep, profound view training, we become shapeshifters of our own experience, architects of the Buddhaverse for the benefit of other beings. Thus concludes the 30 steps of awakening. So I hope you've enjoyed this review session. I hope it's beneficial for those that have been on the ride, for those that are just joining us. I hope it inspires you to start again with step 1. And I hope, whether you've come in for the first time or have been around the block, I hope you'll join me on the Lam Rim meditation series, a 1-year course where we can really juice press each and every one of these contemplations and bring them from our intuition out into the world. Until soon, all best wishes.